Good evening, everyone. It is a challenging time. It's a challenging time for us on an international level. The world, in many ways, has slowed down to a pace that is unrecognizable for most of us. But even at a time like this, when we are required to socially distance ourselves from one another, we're unable to gather together physically, but we are blessed that we can do so virtually. And it is important for us to do so at this time. It's 75 years since the end of the Holocaust. It's hard to believe that so much time has elapsed. And the need to commemorate Yom Hashoah with every passing year is more and more important. And we are blessed and fortunate to have the opportunity to hear from one of the survivors in our midst, Emil, who we will speak to in a couple of moments. He and I will have a virtual armchair conversation. We'll talk about aspects of the Holocaust as he experienced them in his life, and perhaps lessons that we can learn from the Holocaust as we face the challenges of a world plagued by COVID-19. But to begin, as we do normally, I would like to light some candles. And I light 2 sets of candles. One is a candelabra that was prepared by the Yad Vashem Museum in Yerushalayim, and it has place for 6 candles to commemorate the more than 6 million Kedoshim who gave their lives, who were butchered, who were massacred, who were drowned, who were tortured to death by Hitler, Yamach Shemo, and so many individuals from so many different countries who unfortunately participated willingly in the horrors of the Holocaust. And I also light a candle that's part of a project called Yellow Candle. Yellow Candle is a project, I don't know if you could see, but the candle has in it, it's hard to see, but there is actually, the wick is here, but it's surrounded by a Magen David. And the project is aimed at remembering individuals who perished in the Holocaust. And this particular candle, each candle comes with a little card. This candle is being lit in memory of Vukica Nisim of Bulgaria, who perished in 1945 at age 55. So I'll begin first by kindling the candles. We have a tradition that although the wax of a candle or the oil of a candle or whatever the fuel may be burns down, but the flame burns upward. And this suggests that even though there are those who have been physically taken from us, but their spirits and their memories continue to rise heavenward. And it's our sacred obligation to make sure that these Kedoshim are never forgotten, that they are always remembered. And one of the ways in which we pay tribute to them is by lighting these candles. We have a tradition in our shul, a beautiful tradition, that when we commemorate Yom HaShoah, that we also remember the connection that individuals have to the Holocaust. And one of the things that we do is that we identify the Lower Marian Synagogue survivors of the Shoah and the children of survivors. And so I ask you to bear with me as I read the names of individuals in our shul who have connections to the Holocaust who were survivors, children of survivors, or perhaps who lost ancestors in the Shoah. Sherry Adler, grandchild of survivors Joseph Adler and Lillian Adler, Zichronon Livracha, and great-granddaughter of survivor Anna Biron, Zichronon Livracha. Sherry's children, Adir, Liana, and Amma Seyman, are great-grandchildren of Joseph and Lillian Adler, Zichronon Livracha, and great-great-grandchildren of Anna Biron, Zichronon Livracha. Sarah Elpert, daughter of survivors Avram and Shoshana Rosenblatt, Zichronon Livracha. Steve Backrack, son of survivors Carl and Meta Backrack, Zichronon Livracha. Harriet Bernstein, granddaughter of survivor Emma Schiff Becker, Zichronon Livracha. Joshua Blyer, grandson of survivors Henry and Shelley Score, Zichronon Livracha. Sarah Eisenberg Blyer, granddaughter of survivors Annette Hirschwas Greyjauer and Ephraim Greyjauer, Zichronon Livracha. Great-granddaughter of survivors Sarah Trena and Elchanan Yitzchak Hirschwas, Zichronon Livracha. Sarah and Joshua's children, Kayla, Joseph, Nathaniel, and Jonathan Blyer, are great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren of those survivors. Ellen Brofman, daughter of survivor Joseph Just, Zichronon Livracha. Dale Dunoff, daughter of Clara Mellis, survivor of Auschwitz. Talia Eisenstein, daughter of survivors Isidore and Sephora Appelman Eisenstein, Zichronon Livracha. Rodney Elkin, son of survivor Dr. Celia Elkin, Zichronon Livracha. Ronel Elul, son of child survivor Gitta Elul, Zichronon Livracha. Grandson of survivors Simon Schneider and Esther Schneider, Zichronon Livracha. Great-grandson of Noach Schneider, who was murdered at Treblinka, and Malka Schneider, who was murdered at Auschwitz, Kelim Kom Damam. Julie Feldman, daughter of survivors Gabrielle Stern Revez and George Revez, Zichronon Livracha. Len Friedman, son of survivor Tilla Seferheld Friedman, Azrella Or Friedman, daughter of survivor Bela Fincheltug, Zichronon Livracha. Elliot Friedman and Jonathan Friedman, grandsons of survivors Bracha Zina Stern and Benjamin Joseph Kraus, Zichronon Livracha. Gilad Givaryahu, stepson of survivor Chana Davidovich Givaryahu and her parents Benjamin and Sarah Davidovich. Gilad is the grandson of Alter Gad and Shandel Gottesman and Rachel Landesman, Zichronon Livracha. Bracha Hollander Goldfein, daughter of Harry and Saba Hollander, Zichronon Livracha. Sue Gordon, daughter of survivors Frederick and Violet Newman, Zichronon Livracha. Erwin Hirsch, son of survivors Joseph and Clara Hirsch, Zichronon Livracha. Carolyn Hochstetter, child of survivors Judith and Fred Hochstetter, Zichronon Livracha. Herman Itzkowitz, son of survivor Bernard Itzkowitz, Zichronon Livracha. Edith Itzkowitz, daughter of survivors Joseph and Helen Schwartz, Zichronon Livracha. Larry Jonas, son of survivors Shulam and Dora Jonas, Zichronon Livracha. Michelle Ziskin Jonas, daughter of survivor Edith Landau Ziskind, Zichronon Livracha. Morris Jutkovich, child of survivors Isidore and Julia Jutkovich, Zichronon Livracha. Michael Kahana, son of child survivor Eva Kahana. Betty Gadalski Lawler, daughter of survivors David Gadalski and Chava Diamond Gadalski, Zichronon Livracha. Menashe Cohn, son of survivors Leib and Rachel Cohn, Zichronon Livracha. Judy Katz Margulies, daughter of survivors Leona Grossman Katz, Zichronon Livracha, and David Katz. Judy's children, Eva, Stephen, and Benjamin, are the grandchildren of David and Leona, and her great-grandchildren, Zoe, Emma, and Jordy, are the great-grandchildren. Menachem Meller, son of survivors Moshe Buna Meller and Bella Meller, Zichronon Livracha. Veer Maureen, daughter of survivors Cecilia Bosch and Coleman Bosch, Zichronon Livracha. Mark Moster, son of survivor Gabriel Tzvi Moster, Zichronon Livracha. Marlene Moster, child of survivor Jack Ryback, Zichronon Livracha. Zev Pachter, son of survivor Harry Pachter, Zichronon Livracha. Robin Yvonne Pachter, daughter of survivor Enoch Trencher, Zichronon Livracha. Emil Schurz Passau, child of survivors Dina Schechter Schurz and Charles Schurz, Zichronon Livracha. Hannah Klieger Peltz, daughter of survivors Roman Klieger, Zichronon Livracha, and Frida Klieger. Gil Pearl, grandson of survivors Norbert Strauss, Gazella Pearl, and Sam Pearl, Zichronon Livracha. Melissa Pearl, daughter of survivor Ira Poser. Gil and Melissa's children, Shmuel, Racheli, Benny, and Eitan Pearl, are grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Ira, Norbert, Gazella, and Sam. Tammy Peskin, daughter of survivors Abraham Ziskin and Lola Ziskin, Zichronom Livracha. Sandy Rosenthal, daughter of survivors Edith Hadassah Baumhaft and Irving Yisrael Baumhaft, Zichronom Livracha. Renee Rubin, daughter of survivor Helen Rosenberg Rothstein. Alex Schwartz, son of survivors Moshe and Hermina Schwartz, Zichronom Livracha. Benny Schwartz, son of survivors Irene Feldman, Zichronom Livracha, and Mordechai Schwartz. Benny had three brothers murdered in Auschwitz, George Laszlo and Sandor, Zichronom Livracha. Nadav Schwartz, grandson of Rivka and Chaim Cohn, and Piri and Lipa Schwartz, Zichronom Livracha. Nadav's children, Mayan, Matan, Itai, and Adir, are the great-grandchildren. Lipa's first wife and 4 children were murdered. Meir Seidenwar, son of Miriam Molinovsky, Seidenwar, survivor of Auschwitz, and Mordechai Seidenwar, survivor of labor camps. Zichronom Livracha. Avram Shmidman, son of child survivor, Rebbetzin Sabina Shmidman. Rabbi Ari Silver, grandson of Alfred and Betty Rosenblatt, Zichronom Livracha. Ronit Snitman, granddaughter of Anna Pasternak and Eugene Pasternak, Zichronom Livracha. Sean Snitman, grandson of Leah Itzkevitz and Shalom Itzkevitz, Zichronom Livracha. Betty Sved, survivor, and wife of survivor Saul Sved, Zichronom Livracha, and child of Yitzchak, Isaac, and Rivka Itzkowitz, Zichronom Livracha. Stanley and Ira Sved, sons of survivors Betty Sved and Saul Sved, Zichronom Livracha. Ronnie Trudler, granddaughter of survivor Jack Breitkopf, and granddaughter of survivors Michael and Rose Clapper. Ronnie's children, Judah, Esty, David, and Ike, are great-grandchildren of Jack, Michael, and Rose. Mark Tukachinsky, son of survivors Joseph and Kula Tukachinsky, Zichronom Livracha. In the event that any names were left off or that errors were made, we apologize for the mistakes and ask that you contact our office to make sure that in future years we have all of the information presented in a correct fashion. At this point, we will recite two tefillos, two prayers on behalf of those who have perished. I am putting them up on the screen. The first is Yizkar, which I will recite in Hebrew and then in English, and it will be followed by a kina, a lament for the Holocaust. Yizkar Elohim Nishamos, Kol Krovaya Krovasai, Hein Mitzad Avi, Hein Mitzad Imi, Akdoshim V'Atorim, Shehomzu V'Shenargu, V'Shenishratu, V'Shenisrafu, V'Shenitbeu, V'Shenachnaku, Al Kiddush Hashem, V'Avor Shabli Neder, Etain Staka, Baraz Kras Nishmaseim, V'Schar Zeh, Tiyenu Nafshiseyem, Tzuros B'Tzorah Chayim, Nishmos Avram Yitzchak V'Yakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah, V'Yimshar Tzadikim V'Tzidkani Yosef V'Gan Eden, V'Nomar, Amen. May God remember the souls of all of my relatives, both on my father's side and on my mother's side. The holy and pure ones who were killed, murdered, slaughtered, burned, drowned, and strangled for the sanctification of the name. I hereby vow in order to give charity on their behalf. As reward for this, may their souls be bound in the bond of life, together with the souls of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and together with the other righteous men and women in the Garden of Eden. Now let us respond, Amen. I now proceed to recite in Hebrew the kina that was composed by Rabbi Shimon Schwab, who was the rabbi of Kaladas Jesherin, rabbi of the German Jewish community in Washington Heights, New York, on behalf of the 6 million, the 6 million plus. In recent years, historians have determined that the number is much greater. And the kina, besides for it being presented on the screen in Hebrew, beneath it has an interlinear English translation for those who wish to follow along in that fashion. Hazocher mazkirov dar kdoshov me'es asher az bachartonu yizkar deraon shel dar acharon oya me'oya lonu shtufei mabul dam shemasru nafshosam kol shkuim ke'abacha yifkedei Elohim ba'atzos hachayim v'adeat zichram livracha Se'u elav kapayim ishamayim Hoyal meitiv shiftei Yisrael Eidos ukilos arim uglilos Chavaros mosdos kol moadei el Mitein palge mayim tardinai nayim El ashdos nachal admaos Alei alfei alafim gufim nisrafim V'mo'ei shachurban uzvaos V'al sorei ataro machzikei mesora V'al pirchei kahuna hatzeirim V'al chovshei midrashos Umarim umaros, tinokos beis rabon yikirim, al bonos botchos v'savim v'savos, v'al zarom v'tapom shioladu, v'gam l'rabos rivavos ne'avim b'chayim b'mosom lo nifradu, as damam d'rosh kisiso as rosh, shall kol nidaf le'elam hatrufim, kol nafshos meis b'mei shever v'sheis, Shisha alfei fa'amim alafim, Shlishia levaer, Bivrak za'am so'er, Mikarmei achemed avta, Goel adam, No zecher tzarom, Al timcha, Misefer kasavta, Zechor han akos v'rash tzakos, Oz yuvlu lo retzach, Yorei dmeihem, V'dimos pneihem lo sishachachno lo netzach, Kol chil ugnicha unihi tzricha mishtudela kos haklavim Zechor usfor ben odcha tzrar ad eis nekom elbon aluvim B'machanos haproim ka'ev nugayim uvachay nevashos agumos Charafos utzchok klimos v'rog pitzei av ka'os ayumos Ruva'on etzimaon ashigaon itzavon V'chishlon nechashalim b'lichalach V'chol nekos chalal mikol yachid umlal Chalil alacham milishkoach V'simros oshen v'kitor mikivshon Tilei tilam atzamos v'gidim V'chadrei hara'al kol shagos mikahal Hanechnakim toch ta'ei haidim V'sirchon gufos ugvios skufos Glal domon admas noatzim Ei chafu torfeihem Levaris kalvayam, the Arish Likishute Anoshim, Ukritzas Etzbo Shel Roshei Abros, Yamin Shibud Perach, Tzalmoves Lismol, the Eich Yaru Yirios Al Chofrei Abaros, Yisrei Chibud Kever Redim Shol, Eich Inu, Ach Yoseinu Visar, Suvna Seinu, Kosos Tarla, Midei Rofim, Achzorim, Uflitei asridim b'mechilos u'sesorim v'timyon yeladim b'vatei shmad k'marim sesamim lala dam b'nei agola hoy Ariel minivlas chasidecha tzoyin kadoshim miyimna asher isham lo sichveh v'chunecha yu mikotshei shemecha v'kol shema Yisrael masru nefesh L'el shu yasveim, v'ad yom acharon yitzdiku din, v'af ani mamin anu, v'sharu shiras bitachon, u'v'chein nishar am, ki yisomim nedachim, b'li kvarim lishtateach, v'lo matzefo zefo livkos, yivavos levav roseach, rak nischei adam asgrosam, tosasim b'li shocheach, v'arei efrei akedasam, atshumos dishnei mizbeach, Mi Yamalel Tzar Yisrael, Asher Dato, Mikev Nitrefes, Usheri Saper, Kemat Mizair, Eichom So, Ayom Nichfefes, El Chai, Merachem Adascho, Nachem Asher L'chom Ma'od Nichsefes, Or Chadosh Tazriach, Karneho Tatzmiach, V'ruach Elohim Mirachefes. Before I proceed to introduce our distinguished guest, allow me a couple of remarks. Today on the secular calendar is April 20th. April 20th is a difficult day for Jews. April 20th is the birthday of Adolf Hitler, Yamach Shemo v'Zichro. And I'd like to share with you a very brief story that I heard from Rabbi Marvin Heyer, who runs the Simon Wiesenthal Center, who shared with me that shortly before Simon Wiesenthal's 90th birthday, Simon Wiesenthal called him up and said, Marvin, I'm going to be 90 years old and I want to celebrate my birthday. Simon Wiesenthal, of course, had done so much to assure that the Holocaust would not be forgotten, done so much to pursue Nazis after the war, wherever they may be hiding. And of course, his name is the name of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. So Rabbi Heyer, understandingly, responded and said, okay, how would you like to celebrate your birthday? At that point, he was about to turn 90. He was frail, was not able to leave his home in Vienna. And he said, Marvin, I'd like to get together a couple of friends, and I would like to celebrate my birthday in the Imperial Hotel. So Rabbi Heyer said, okay. And he said, I want to make sure, of course, obviously, that the birthday celebration is going to be a kosher birthday celebration. So he said, okay. And so Rabbi Heyer spared no effort, no expense to assure that Simon Wiesenthal would have a meaningful birthday, a kosher birthday party in the Imperial Hotel. And Rabbi Heyer finally turned to Simon Wiesenthal and said, tell me, why was it so important for you to celebrate your birthday here at this hotel? And Simon Wiesenthal told him, he said, this is where Hitler Yamach Shemoi made it his headquarters. This was such an important place to him that he built a bunker, still exists, underneath this hotel. And the best answer that we can provide is to show that we're on top and they're on bottom. He pointed up to the chandelier. They were singing bells, mein städtele bells. Some of you who are a little bit older might know that great classic song. And the chandelier was shaking. And Simon Wiesenthal said, you see, here we are, a group of Yidden, a group of Jews, eating a kosher meal in the very hotel that Hitler Yamach Shemoi sought to destroy us from. This is why I wanted to have my birthday here, to show that we're on top and not them, and that we are going to do everything to continue. And indeed, that is our obligation, is to make sure that we stay on top, that we are the ones who are not forgotten. And it's so important for us to gather year after year to make sure that the Holocaust is not just a forgotten event. And we are fortunate to have with us Emil Fish, and Emil and I, we share a close connection at some level, even though he's a couple of days older than I am, but we're a little bit like a landslide, and there are a lot of good memories that we have shared over the years. And Emil has done a lot in his life to assure that the Holocaust is not forgotten, and not least of his many accomplishments is his beautiful family that he and his late wife, Jenny Alaa Shalom, whose passing is fresh in our hearts and minds, that they built. And we are fortunate that they have shared some of their children with us, that we have Robert and Monique Mogioros living in our community and their sons. And it's the ultimate response to Hitler Yamach Shemo. And this evening, I'd like to have a little bit of a conversation with Emil, and I hope that you'll all listen in and that there are things that we can learn about his experiences, about the Holocaust, and about how we deal with the challenges in our own time. Let's face it, it's bizarre that we have gone more than 4 weeks without any of us davening in shul. It seems just crazy. And we have to make sure that, of course, we maintain our physical health, but we also have to maintain our spiritual strength. And Emil is a hero. We don't have many heroes in our world, but in my world of heroes, Emil is a hero, and he has much to teach us. So my first question is, rather than me trying to somehow sum up your life, Emil, maybe I can ask you to discuss a little bit about your life. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about your where you were born and what you went through in the Holocaust and afterwards.
Okay, first of all, I wish my mother, Leah Shalom, would be alive to say all these things about me. I'm sure she would have liked it. First, I want to thank the administration and Rabbi Shmidman for inviting me to participate in this year's Yom Hashoah commemoration. I'm always honored when I'm asked to share my personal story, yet it is much more than an honor. It is an obligation I feel to keep the memories alive of the 6 million who were murdered, as well as the survivors who are no longer here to tell their stories. This generation is the last one, most likely, who will hear a first-hand account of the most imaginable, horrific chapter in our Jewish history. A Holocaust survivor, when asked to speak in front of a Jewish audience for a short address, has a dilemma as to what part of the Holocaust to cover. There are thousands of books today available about the Holocaust. I'm sure you have read many of them, therefore I do not want to bore you with information you already know. I will present a short account as how we, all 4 of us in the family, survived. And then, of course, I will turn over to Rabbi Shmidman to chair the rest of the evening. I hope I don't bore you with my story. I'll try to make it as short as I possibly can. I was born in 1935 into a Hasidic family in the town of Bardejov in eastern Slovakia. 10,000 people lived in Bardejov. About 1/3 of the town was Jewish. Although I was very young at the time, my memories of the anti-Semitism, fear, and tension in our town is still crystal clear. Starting in 1941, all Jews had to wear yellow armbands. And the only way to avoid being deported in 1942 to a concentration camp was to hide, run away, or get official exemption from the Slovakian Nazi government. If the Nazi thought your business was needed for the state economy, you would get exemption. This was the case of my father's business. He was in the lumber business, manufacturing railroad ties. Only about 10% of the Jews in town received exemption. The first official transport ever arrived in Auschwitz included 82 young women and girls who came from Bardiyov district. A book was written recently about this thing called 999 Girls. Most of these women never returned. Both of my grandfathers, my father's 3 brothers, his sister, aunts, uncles, and all of their children were transported to Auschwitz. None of them survived. No one in my father's entire family from my grandfather's side, except my father, survived. After the last transport left Bardiyov, there was only about 400 Jews left in town. In the beginning of 1944, we received all the Jews that all remaining Jews had to move west. The purpose was to get us into one place so they can send us to concentration camp. My parents, sister, and I moved to Nitra, a city about 4 hours from Bardiyov, by car. We rented a house at the edge of the town so it would be easier to run or hide if it came necessary. Early one morning, my mother, Leah, may she rest in peace, was coming back to the house after picking a fresh bread for breakfast. As she was crossing the railroad track, she was stopped by a Gestapo officer. He accused her of being a Jew and wanted her to lead him to her family so he could arrest us and send us to concentration camp. My mother, thanks God for that, did not look Jewish. She spoke Slovakian slang that was common among the Gentile farmers in the village of eastern Slovakia. There was a Slovakian Christian guard there who knew my mother. He knew that she was Jewish. With his help, she convinced the Gestapo officer that she wasn't Jewish. She rushed back to her house. Within minutes, we packed some belongings and started walking out of town. We had no idea where we are going. It was pouring. We found a large vineyard with a lot of trees to protect us from the rain. We hid inside the vineyard for 2 days, soaking wet and hungry. It rained continuously. My parents decided to knock on the door next door, was nearby. Luckily, the owners, an older couple, were Christian Baptists, and Christian Baptists were known for helping Jews. We pleaded for help. They refused because they felt it was too risky, as Jews were being hidden next door in another Baptist family. Finally, they agreed. They hid us in a small attic above a cow barn. We could not stand up. We had to just lay flat or sit. They brought us food and clothing daily. After a few months hiding in attic, it became too dangerous for us to stay any longer. We hired a guide who would take us during the night through the forest to hide with the farmers in the village. After we arrived to the village, a few days later, the guide informed us that he was worried because the farmer has gotten drunk, having money now, at a local tavern, and told everyone in town that he was now rich because he was hiding Jews. The farmer also announced out loud that if the police came, he would not turn the Jews in. We knew we couldn't stay any longer, so once again, we were on the run. We made arrangements with the guide to lead us through the forest at night to the nearest train station to travel to Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia, using falsified Iranian Christian papers. As we were walking through the pitch black dense forest, out of nowhere, a forest ranger appeared with a shotgun, threatening to kill us. Our guide panicked and ran away. The ranger was shooting at him. We had no idea if he was killed or wounded. Because of my father's background in lumber business, he had experience dealing with rangers. My parents persuaded the man to let us go. We gave him all the money we had with us, as well as my mother's expensive fur coat. We started walking back to the house where we had been staying, not knowing if we would be able to find it. The next day, we learned that our guide had not been hurt badly. He was able to again take us through the forest to the train station for a ride to Bratislava. We arrived in Bratislava, hungry and tired, ready for a coffee shop to have breakfast. As we walked inside one, we realized there was only one large table with empty seats left. A German officer was sitting at the end of the table. We couldn't turn around or it would be draw attention to ourselves. My father instructed us to sit down at the table and not to speak a word. My father saluted his officer with a high Hitler hand and started intentionally arguing with the officer in perfect German, pretending we were Slovaks. He had learned to speak German perfectly when he attended the famous Brody Yeshiva in the Frankfurter on the Main in Germany. He started an argument with the officer that we Slovaks are your partners to Hitler, yet German officers and soldiers are occupying us as if we were enemies. We should be left alone. We know what to do with all the Jews and the Bolsheviks in our country. The officer got angry, saluted Hi Hitler. My father returned Hi Hitler, and he left. Gutsy and quick thinking worked. During the dinner, we had a place to stay prearranged in the apartment. In a beautiful apartment through connection that my father had with a Gentile family before the war. During the dinner, the owner excused himself and said he'll be back in an hour. We immediately knew we were in trouble and that man was on his way to inform the Gestapo that he had Jews. That's exactly what happened. Midnight, the Gestapo knocked on the door and arrested us. We were driven to the Gestapo headquarters. From there, in the morning, we were sent to Seret, which was a collection camp to be sent to a concentration camp. When we got loaded into the trucks, wagons, the scariest moment was when they separated my father from us. My father was taken to Buchenwald in a cattle car. My mother, my sister, and I were also loaded in a cattle car, packed like sardines to be transferred to Auschwitz. There was no food, no water, no sanitation facilities on the train. Apparently, the trek to Auschwitz in Poland has been bombed. We ended arriving in Bergen-Belsen, concentration camp in Germany. Bergen-Belsen was a scary place, getting worse by each day. It was full of lice, diseases, typhus, tuberculosis, and many other diseases. People were starving and dying right before your eyes. There were piles of thousands of dead bodies right in front of our barrack. Next door to our barrack, there was a group of children from Holland that included Anne Frank and her sister Margot. Of course, no one had heard about Anne Frank at that time. Her diary was published, of course, years later. Anne Frank and her sister Margot both died of typhus in Bergen-Belsen. Many children in the camp contracted typhus. My sister was one of them. Thankfully, my sister survived. The conditions in the camp were getting worse every day. It was towards the end of the war and prisoners were dying all around us from diseases, starvation, lack of water, and no sanitation. Surviving was a daily challenge. On April 15, the British soldiers liberated Bergen-Belsen, finding 60,000 prisoners in a place originally designed for 13,000. Most of us were sick. There were about 250 of us who returned back to Bardiof after the war. In 1949, I traveled to Israel with Bnei Akiva to yeshiva to study in Israel. My parents went for Canada, and I joined them in 1951. In 1955, we immigrated to Los Angeles. And I would like to stop now, and I'm Shmidman. I'll let you chair the rest of the evening.
Emil, thank you for that very powerful recap of your youth. I have a couple of follow-up questions. Firstly, I'm wondering if in all of your experiences in your youth in the Holocaust, is there anything that stands out? Is there any event, any experience, any conversation, anything that you saw that somehow stays with you more strongly than other experiences?
Well, it just happens to be that we're going through the virus now, the coronavirus, and the most powerful experience that we experienced during the war, that you needed help from everybody you can get a hold of, Jews and non-Jews. And the only way that you could survive is to work together. Everybody was helping everybody else. And it's the only way that you could survive in concentration camp and any other place. You gotta, everybody, if he knew how to survive, would tell somebody else. And that's how a lot of Jews survived in bunkers, in the hills, by one Jew helping another one. So the Nazi controlled the physical thing, but they couldn't control the Jewish spirit. And that's what I learned from concentration camp, that you're not by yourself. And that compares very much to what's going on today. So I'm a great believer in the modern Orthodox society where we try to help each other, we live together. And I hope that's a big lesson we can learn from that. That's what's happening to us today.
That's very, very powerful and very moving. The number of survivors in the world is diminishing. It's a smaller and smaller club. There are no new inductees into the Survivors Club. And when we say the word Holocaust, or we use the expression 6 million, these are such loaded terms, Shoah, and there's so much to talk about, there's so much to reflect on. I'm wondering, 3/4 of a century on, what particular aspects of the Holocaust, because we can't possibly understand it, we can't remember it fully, we can't appreciate it, those of us who didn't go through it, what particular message or ideas do you think that the youth of our generation need to learn from the Holocaust?
Well, there's a lot of things to learn from the Holocaust, but the most important part, I think, is how to prevent another Holocaust. What do we learn, and how are we going to do that? There's thousands of things we can learn from the Holocaust from each other. Every survivor has his own story, has his own message, and we all heard that many times. So the real question is, what do we do to prevent another Holocaust? That's what we need to learn. So, in my opinion, it's not what we write or say or to think. What we do is counts more than what we think. So the only way I think I learned from all of this thing is that you have to have education, first of all, about the Holocaust. And then we Jews have to get politically involved. We have to do something real. It's worth more than just talking about it. We have to support Israel. We have to actively speak against anti-Semitism, not to be afraid that you will create more anti-Semitism. It's an old Jewish thing saying, best thing is, mach sich nicht wissentlich, which in Jewish means pretend like it doesn't exist. And that's going to solve the problem. And we Jews have to learn to respect power. I remember as a child, power was a bad word. Power was an insult. You don't want to be powerful, you want to be humble. So in order to prevent that, you got to be powerful, you got to be proud, and don't be afraid, and do things. Create monuments, museums, schools, because one physical thing is more worth than 1,000 books and sayings and talking. It's the real thing is to do something about it. And if you do the right thing, hopefully we can prevent another Holocaust. That's the thing I learned.
So, Emil, you're very humble, and you didn't mention some of any of the deeds that you have done. So I don't know if you have it handy right next to you, but Emil put out an incredible book about Bardiev from where he came, and it really is a remarkable testament. And I know, Emil, you've been back to Bardiev, and I know you have taken others with you. And in fact, there are people from our shul who have traveled with you to Bardiev, and I know that you are actively involved in Holocaust education as we speak. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the things that you have tried to make sure are passed on. In other words, what are the things that you are trying to educate people about with regards to the Holocaust, and how have you gone about doing that?
Okay, so I didn't know what question you're going to ask me, so I'm not really poetically prepared. I will do the best I can. Every survivor knows that most of the victims last war were "don't forget us." There was a common thing about the people that were taken to the gas chamber and knew they're going to be killed. For some reason, they said, "Don't forget us." So the question is, what can we do not to forget them? And when I went back to Bardiev, to my hometown, after about 40 years not being there, I realized that everything Jewish has been destroyed over there or not paid attention to. So I made myself a neder. I remember I was standing in front of houses where my friends, we were playing. Then I made a neder right then, very emotional neder, that I will make sure that the heritage of the Jews is not forgotten. Because that's what the order was before they went to the gas chamber. Please do not forget us. So I started being active, and I helped other cities to build monuments. And in Bardiev, I built a monument where everybody who lived in Bardiev did not come back name is on it, so at least they have a gravestone. And I restored the shul, even though they're not Jews. I didn't want the goyim, and I didn't want them to win. So we restored the shul, we built the monument, and we did many other things. I wrote a book about the heritage, and I do the best I can. But what's driving me is their victims' last word. Please do not forget us.
And Emil has recently, in fact, in conjunction with Yeshiva University, taken on a major undertaking to assure that future generations don't forget. And we're fortunate that there are people like Emil around who are not only survivors, but are committed to making sure that the memories of others survive. I want to go back to one thing that you touched upon really as a final question. And That is, you talked about how during the Holocaust, you recognized that people helping each other, that's what helped you survive. And that's something that's relevant for us during COVID-19. The need to help one another and the need to stay connected. I'm wondering if you could maybe expand on that a little bit and talk about it a little bit from, as they would say, what's the tiefen hart, what's deep in the heart. That is to say that, yes, it's very important that we are supportive of one another, and thankfully, because of technology, we can talk to each other via phone, we could connect with the internet, with Zoom. But I'm wondering from a spiritual standpoint, how do you stay strong in your heart, knowing that people can't go to shul, they can't say Kaddish, people can't go b'menach movel, people can't go to burials, people can't go to simchas. What is perhaps in your mind a source of strength during these times that we could tap into?
Well, in consultation camp, there's a lot of common things between what's going on now in consultation camp. We found out in consultation camp that the way to survive is to help each other and protect each other. Because if you protected me one day, I'm going to protect you the next day. So it was common knowledge that people who had hopes and believed in that a better day is coming and were optimistic survived. And the people who gave up did not survive. So there is a lot of common between what's going on now and what was happening in Israel. For example, at that time, we didn't have any, in consultation camp, we didn't have any control over our lives. We don't have any control over our lives now. We were told what to do. Yet still, you have to be hopeful that things are going to end up okay. Children, and when I was a child, we didn't know what's going on. We couldn't understand that. I don't think the children understand that now, but they will understand that later on because they will remember what was going on. So they're going to learn a good lesson that you have to help each other, you have to cooperate, you have to do the best you can. Family were being torn apart during the war. They're being torn apart now. They can't be together. We can't go to shul. And yet we survived. So we have to hope for a better day. So that's in common that we have now, what we had before. And we learned that we constantly have to hope that the war is going to end fast. We did not know when the war is going to end. We don't know when the virus is going to end now, yet we live from day to day, and we were hoping and that a better day is going to come. So we learned that the only way is to work together, hope, have a bitachon, and do the best you can under the circumstances, and you have to live from day to day. And that's basically what's happening now, what happened then.
As they would say in the old country, gut gesagt. And on that note, I would just reiterate and emphasize what Emil said, that we have to have hope, we have to be optimistic, and although we don't know when it's going to end, we hope that it should end soon, and that at that time we'll be able to gather together, not merely for the purpose of commemorating painful events like the Shoah, but to gather together to celebrate in a rebuilt Beis HaMikdash. May we all merit that time speedily in our days. And again, thank you so much, Emil. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, one and all.
Thanks for joining us.